It's called Bequeath. His footfalls crunched with the weight of each step. The crusty, snow-covered ground revealed no other footprints besides his, not even those of the little girl he swore he saw running into the two-story Dutch colonial, which now stood menacing and silent in the in front of him. Still, Tim felt confident about what his eyes had seen, despite the fog of wind-blown snow rising off the street. He glanced down at the antique tome of fairy tales cradled in his arm, the only remaining evidence, besides the contents of the urn, that his mother ever existed. When he received a call from an attorney letting him know of her lonely passing in an assisted living home, he expected nothing value, if anything, had been left to him. Not that it really mattered, even if he did remember, harbored any of those special recollections shared between mother and son in his memory banks, he would never have truly known her. The maternal bond had been severed when she vanished decades ago, with nary a mention of since. Yet, when the attorney handed Tim her remains and the solitary book she had bequeathed him, he couldn't in good conscience deny granting her this one last wish of scattering her ashes around her childhood home, wherever that was. As far as Tim had been able to uncover, his mother had been remanded by the state years ago, living and dying in the same state-run facility. For reasons Tim couldn't fathom, her attorney knew nothing else. This lack of information had only piqued his curiosity more, tantalizing his core with nervous energy. That night, thumbing through the old pages, wishing any memory of his mother would return, he found an address. Scribbled and faded on a scrap of paper, it was buried in the middle of the book and clipped to a ribbon of 35mm film negatives. He'd spend the rest of that night looking at them, losing himself in an unfamiliar sea of monochromatic images. Replaying the memory of the discovery had kept him lost in deep thought. He grumbled the whole long, miserable journey. Though he hated driving far for anything, he made good on his promise, hoping he'd maybe find some answers, or perhaps at least some closure. Now that he had arrived at last to this desolate, abandoned town in the cold of December, winter's bitterness biting the back of his neck, he fought the urge to jump back in his car and speed away, forgetting the whole ordeal inside a bottle of whiskey. But what about that little girl? He read the address again before looking up at the faded house numbers painted on the door. This was it, Mom's childhood home. Through the snow he trudged, up the steps and across the porch. The front door stood ajar, hanging off kilter on its old rusted hinges. "Hello?" he called, suspiciously eyeing the house's interior. "Little girl, I saw you come in here. Are you okay?" Tim crept inside, leaving faint footprints on the snowdrift that had blown in through the opening. He shut the door against the cold and carefully placed the urn on a shelf. Depressing silence deafened him and his eardrums popped. He heard a faint sob. A short blur of color raced past the threshold to another room. "Don't be scared, I won't hurt you." Silence. "It's okay, this is my mom's old house." He tiptoed towards the next room. "Do you live around here?" In the blanket of murkiness oppressing the room, Tim bumped hard into some sheet-covered furniture littering the space. He dropped his book and the resulting boom resonated, echoing off the walls. "Shh, that hurt," he said as he winced, picking the book up from the floor, the film negative slipping from between the pages. With book and negative in hand, he turned the corner, staying on the girl's trail. On the wall in the next room, someone had painted a mural of flowery meadow. Though it was dull and faded of time, he still found it appealing and somehow familiar. Then he remembered. Tim stepped to the window and held up the negatives to the failing winter light. In one of the frames, as if looking through a sepia-colored lens, the same mural had been captured. He heard the whimpering again, catching him by surprise. Tim spun, film strip still in his hand. When he noticed the imprinted scene on the negative moving, matching what he saw before him, he dropped the film, unnerved. Nearby, tiny footsteps raced up a flight of stairs. "Hey, don't be scared." He scooped up the film, shifting the heavy book into his other hand, and followed the sound. A wood staircase led to his second floor as murky darkness powdered the pale light, filtering through the grimy windows. Gut instinct told him to look through the film again. He awkwardly closed one eye and held the film up to the other, catching the last rays of light. Everything before him took on the texture of old newsreel. As he moved, the scene within that single frame moved with him. He went back and forth, from film to reality, just to be certain of what he thought he was seeing was, in fact, really happening. At the top of the stairs, a shadow lurked but vanished the instant he stopped looking through the negative. He continued upwards, minding his step and listening for any more sounds. On the landing, a lone table stood adorned with a tattered and stained doily. However, through the film, he saw a lamp that had been smashed against the wall, fragments scattered everywhere. and a fresh, bloodied handprint soiling the once delicate white cloth. He tore the negative away, a gasp lodging in his windpipe. Something moved in the other room. Awash with courage, he put the film strip back to his eye. Waves of dizziness claimed him from the strain on his eyes, but he kept moving, determined. The grainy tones and quality covered everything as he edged along down the hallway. Yet he couldn't mistake the wet streaks he saw on the walls for anything else. A woman's maddening scream froze his blood. He tore his eyes away from the film and the house fell silent. "Hello, somebody there?" Peering through the negative, the shouting returned. Once more, he looked away to test his theory. More of the unnatural stillness. "Is somebody hurt?" he asked, ever more confused. The film strip altered his perception, somehow tapping into ghostly frequencies. The shrieking reached a violent climax. He raced to the room at the end of the bloodied hallway. Through the otherworldly lens, the body of a girl barely 6 years old lay wounded and motionless on the bed. Blood trickled from an impact in her skull, steeping the sheets in red. In the corner, a frenzied woman stood over a terrified little boy. Younger than the girl, he defensively held up a thick book, struggling to hoist its weight. The woman raged, her face marred by a twisted scowl. She raised the hammer high over her head. Ribbons of blood flew from it, arcing through the air. She shouted obscenity-laced gibberish as she loomed above the crying boy. "Stop!" Tim shouted, hoping to prevent the woman from hurting another child. He leapt over a pile of toys on the floor, his mother's book his only weapon, gripped in his fist. Ready to strike, yet unsure how he could possibly intervene, he dropped the film strip. Everything fell back to darkness and cobwebs, his momentum sending him spinning off balance and crashing into the wall. Panicked, he fumbled around for the film, clumsily groping around in the dim room. His fingertips found the celluloid and he snatched it up from the floor, putting it back up to his eye like some enchanted monocle. Through the lens, a man rushed into the room, tackling the woman moments before she unleashed her rage upon the boy. Tim stared, reluctant to believe, unable to reconcile what and who he was seeing. "Dad?" He watched in snuff-colored disbelief as his father held down the thrashing, vulgarity-spewing woman. Another man, face pale with worry and fright, entered the room. Eyes wide, Tim vaguely recognized the man as he yanked the big book from the boy's grasp and scooped him up and away. "It's all right, Timmy, you're safe now," Tim heard the man say as he rushed the traumatized boy out of the room. Tim, dumbstruck, looked down at the boy's book, now resting on the floorboards where the man had dropped it, then back to his own copy in shattering realization. Finally, the mental barrier that had kept him safe all his life, the truth of what had happened to his older sister and his long-lost mother all those years ago, crumbled from the weight of this newfound reality. All the energy drained from his body, and he went limp, while the film reel of residual energy continued to play in the background. He studied the two books, comparing their similarities, one version rooted in the present and the other in the past, but both part of his reality. Tim opened the front cover to an inscription only found in his bequeathed copy. Frustrated with himself that he hadn't noticed sooner, it read, "To my beautiful son Timothy, I'm so sorry for everything. Love, Mommy." He then cried for the first time in years. I really hope to have more beer in me before this. One other quick one for you, if you guys don't mind.
I don't mind.
I remember asking you. All right. This one was published a couple years ago in Siren's Call magazine. It was a contest. I think I won or something. I don't remember. It's called Unfurl. And it's really short, don't worry. I've forever known that escaping this place would solve a lifetime of despair. Here, standing on the ledge of the third-floor window to this Gothic edifice I've called home for more years than I can remember, I bathe in the fading warmth of the setting sun. Its magical rays highlight the scornful lines of sadness carved in my face from an existence of suffering. Yeah, I hear its siren's call beckoning to me to be one with it, and I hear the eternity in its majesty, feel the comfort in that eternity. As I gaze down upon the magnificent facade of stonework and artistry, I am well aware that no one outside of its hallowed halls and impenetrable walls will ever know the evil and pain held within them. If I am truly the first to break free from the seemingly inescapable fortress of corruption, no one will ever hear my tale, learn of my hoarded reality. Even if someone were privy to my story, I fully believe they find it absurd, and in a twisted sense of irony, recommend that we put right back inside. I brace my arms between the window panes, pushing on the old structure with my hands, as if trying to widen the expanse of my escape route. I look up just as twilight begins to engulf the endurance of light. Shadows twist and dance across the polished architecture, creating visual murmurs calling me to join them, spurring me on to commit to my plan. Below I can sense others staring out through their barred windows, noses to cold glass, wishing they too could somehow break free. Yet their fate isn't their own, perhaps never was. They have succumbed to the inevitable, unable or unwilling to challenge the providence of their keepers. The time has come. Vestiges of sunlight vanish beyond the horizon as the dark's icy tendrils claim the night sky. I look behind me one last time at the clandestine horror that's taken everything from me, that's wrung almost every drop of will I have left. Almost. My toes curl over the edge and the cool air soothes my mind. The time is now. Creeping forward, letting the shadows envelop me. Air rushes by my face in my free fall and I smile. From my back, wings unfurl, catching fate's windy current and lifting me high above this terrible place. Son, I am coming home. Thank you. If somebody wants to buy me a Sapporo, I'll give you a free book.
That's the first time I've heard Doug perform since his death metal days, so great job.